I'm the moderator of the Polish Media Issues Group, and I've been asked to talk about the work of the Polish Media Issues Group, especially our data on the British national media and their coverage, particularly of German-occupied Poland. The Polish Media Issue Group, or the UK Media Monitoring Group, as we were known when we launched in July 2005, is therefore approaching 10 years old. The original plan of the group was to discuss the British media coverage of Poles in Poland and to take action if we felt it was necessary. The group, for various reasons, has focused on issues related to World War II, but we do try to deal with all issues. The effect of this poor media coverage is that people are confused by the role that Poland played during the Second World War, as the media merges the location with the perpetrator. There is a slow but sure shifting of guilt by the association of Poland with the atrocities, especially the German camps in occupied Poland. There are a number of Bologna action groups trying to deal with anti-Polish sentiment, including at least 2 semi-active ones which are older than the BMI. There is, however, something that the BMI does, which I'm not aware of any of the other groups doing, in that we record these issues and try to analyse the results. Our first serious attempt was to create a log of the issues which we are trying to deal with. We record various data, such as the media involved, country of origin, date of the issue, and if we've received any results. Using the log, I can tell you up to now we've been involved in 2,300 media issues, with 500 in 2014 alone. The PMI achieves almost 40% success rate, as a full success rate, which means we consider the matter closed, and slightly over 35% partial success, where we get some result which we see as imperfect. This means that less than 25% of the cases we fail to achieve any form of sizable result. The PMI log has proved a useful tool to monitor our work and ensure continuing improvements in the group's methods. Using it, we can show that the Polish concentration camp issue in the mainstream media was at its height in 2010, with 155 issues. The number has dropped each year since, with just 52 appearing last year. 2014 also, I am pleased to say, saw the first actual drop in the Polish concentration camp issue in the lesser medias, which has been on the rise since 2008. The number of issues dropped from 171 to 150. The United States has generated by far the largest number of issues over the years, with almost 50%. However, the United Kingdom is second, with close to 26% of the issues that we encounter. Taking into account the much larger population of the US, then we can obviously see that the UK could be considered to be perhaps the worst offender. The gap has been closing, and it is possible that this year the UK could overtake the US as the worst actual offender, but then last year we thought that might also happen. Still, complete the combined efforts of the likes of the Embassy and the Federation of Poles in Great Britain, and obviously groups like the PMI, is having a result, and we are seeing a lowering in the number of the actual issues related to one in the camps of Polish concentration. With the PMI expanding, we've been able to use social media to increase the number of actual people that are supporting us, so we are dealing with far more issues. So, for example, we now cover not only English, but 9 other languages. So we are expanding and hope to expand it to 12 this year. The PMI log, however, has its limits. The log has only the data on issues. Further, it doesn't show how others are treated. Therefore, in 2012, the PMI launched a new project. The first was a series of booklets called German Camps, Polish Victims. The booklets document media coverage of Poland during the Second World War. The project also highlights the agony that Poland went through during the German occupation, for those that don't know. The advantage of the booklet over the log is that it has both articles with issue and those without. To explore the media to ensure it is unbiased with the coverage of Poland, the following countries and groups were selected for comparisons: the Channel Islands, Germany and France, plus male homosexuals, gypsies and disabled, to consider how the victims in the German camps are treated. This allows us to more accurately rate a particular media coverage. The first booklet in the German camps Polish Victim series was on the BBC's coverage of German-occupied Poland. It was found that Poland was treated differently to others. For example, the BBC describes as occupied Poland only 20% of the time. The Channel Islands is over 94%. In France, the involvement of Germany is frequently referenced on an average of 5 times, where data is less than once per story for Poland. The result is that the BBC coverage has the mysterious Nazis carrying out atrocities in Poland, therefore failing to make it clear who is actually responsible for the crimes. It is different for France and the Channel Islands, where the crimes are clearly labelled as German and that the country was occupied at the time, making it difficult for individuals to be confused by the BBC stories on those countries. Victims of the Nazi camps in German-occupied Poland is also interesting. Only 50% of the BBC coverage mentions ethnic Poles amongst the victims. This is the same number for those that are disabled. When it comes to homosexuals, they are referenced up over 80% of cases. The number of victims is disputed, but the number of ethnic Pole victims is generally said to be higher than disabled, and disabled higher than homosexual. Therefore, the BBC's coverage failures to frequently include Poles seems strange. The BBC claims that everyone knows that Nazis were basically German and Poland was occupied. Strange then that they seem it necessary to tell us that the Channel Islands, which is effectively part of the United Kingdom, was actually occupied. A survey by the BBC in 2004 found that 45% of the adult population had never heard of Auschwitz. Surveys since support the lack of knowledge in the British population and beyond. Dan, my fellow PMI moderator, will be discussing the recent survey commissioned by the PMI on people's knowledge here in the UK. For the rest of the talk, I would like to share the provisional data on the British national media coverage of German-occupied Poland, focusing on the English papers. It is hoped that the German Camps Polish Victim Booklet, when the full results will be published in late August, in time for the 76th anniversary of the invasion of Poland by Germany and her allies. At that stage, the data is mostly on the actual English national newspapers, as we haven't had time to check through the actual visual data for the others. However, there are some exceptions, as I've only just started to subscribe to The Sun, because I was rather reluctant to pay them any money, but I'm going to look into it, and the Financial Times data is actually slightly out of date. It's actually over a year old since we've updated it. The final results, as I say, will include TV and newspapers, perhaps as well as radio stations. The number of radio stations and the fact that sometimes something can be said at almost any time makes it very difficult to monitor these medias. Who would have predicted that Chris Moyles would have on Radio 1 say that Poles make good prostitutes? We will be adding media from Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland to form a completer picture of the situation here in the United Kingdom in regards to media coverage of Poland during the Second World War. It is perhaps good news, not good news perhaps, but it is better news, shall we say, when we look at the English national press than the BBC and others that we have studied. Still, the overall results, the usage of misleading terms such as Nazis is rampant within the newspapers, with 94% of them using the term in articles related to Poland. The typical article represents the Nazis 4 times. The usage of this term does add some context, but you need to understand who a Nazi is for it to actually assist you in that knowledge. However, Germans are referenced in almost 47% of all cases, so this is obviously much better than the research that we've previously done on the BBC, the Irish and New Zealand media, which, as I say, is much lower. However, Poland continues to be treated poorly compared to other countries. In the same sample of newspapers so far, for France, the usage of German in articles related to World War II was 85%, and it was a very similar number for the Channel Islands, where it was 84% of the articles on the war mentioning the Germans. There does seem to be a clear pattern amongst the media in Ireland, New Zealand and Britain to emphasise the Germans who were responsible for the atrocities in countries when they are compared to Poland. Poland is described as occupied in the English national press 42% of the time. This again compares well to the previous studies carried out by the PMI. Yet again, however, the results are far different in the other country. France is said to be occupied in 96% of stories, and the Channel Islands is almost 100%. We have to wonder why the British media feels a necessity to mention the occupation in the Channel Islands, especially compared to Poland. Another concern is that the fact the occupation of Poland is not generally attributed to anyone. Sometimes other context does make it clear. Still, when it comes to the occupation and the reference, then it is simply occupied, or it is once again the mysterious Nazis. Across the hundreds of stories checked so far, Germany is only referencing a mere 16 cases in direct relationship to the occupation. There is some good news when it comes to victims in the German camps, as the coverage by the English national papers, ethnic Poles are in fact the largest victims listed in the with a very similar number for gypsies. Still, by looking at the actual articles involved, it would seem that there should have been at least 100 more articles which actually should have considered actually having in the word Poles was taken into account for all the other information in the articles. In the English national newspapers, mostly attributed the running of the camps in occupied Poland to the Nazis, or simply put, in Poland. Without the context such as German or occupied, as I have emphasised, the papers often fail to do, these terms are not enough to an individual without knowledge, especially the young. When newspapers do assign and seem to apparently assign blame for the running of the camps to someone, then it's 50% more likely they will use the term Poland or Polish than Germany's or German. Therefore, the coverage of the German camps in occupied Poland is generally worse than the standard article on Poland during the Second World War. There are hundreds of uses of incorrect terms such as Poland's Auschwitz, death camp of Poland, and Polish ghetto in the British national press. This is justified, it is meant as a location, not a shifting of guilt. How do they describe the German camps in Germany and Austria? Will we see camps of Germany, Germany's camps, and German camps? Well, so far we have found just 5 examples. The media clearly uses different approaches to describe the camps when in Germany and when in Poland. The media almost never uses the prefix German or Germany to describe the camps in Germany. The same media which regularly uses Poland and Polish to describe the camps in occupied Poland, but they seem to have forbidden the usage of German or German to describe the camps in Germany. The media may try to defend itself with claims that Poland and Polish are used to describe location, but if so, why do they not do the same in the camps in Germany? The provisional data also indicates a discrepancy in France, but we've yet to actually find enough cases to actually justify the statement beyond it's looking similar but not yet definitive. The PMI, as explained, has had many successes against poor media coverage of Poland. The work of the PMI and others is very important. Germany was responsible for the suffering of almost an unimaginable scale, including the Jewish Holocaust and the atrocities in the German concentration camp. Despite this being a historical fact, it is increasingly being said that Poles were responsible for the Holocaust or took active part in causing the suffering of others. Some experts covering the history of Poland have even noted that Germans have all but been replaced by Poles. The situation has gotten to the point that German camps outside Poland have been moved into Poland by the media. Another example was a massacre carried out in Hungary, which clearly was there because the bodies were dumped into the Danube. However, the media decided that that must have taken place in Poland. Many of the issues we come across occur after the reporters have actually been to Auschwitz, often quite taking part in Holocaust Education Trust trips. If a reporter can't get the facts straight, then how can we expect particularly the lesser educated or the young to know the truth? Our research is also finding out other interesting facts about the British media coverage of Poland. For example, pogroms are being said to have occurred in Poland when at the time Poland did not exist. It was a partition between Germany, Russia and Austria. Further, the lands now don't belong to modern-day Poland. These were therefore took place in the Russian or German Empire and actually in modern-day Ukraine, Belarus and Ukraine, but the media continues to describe these massacres as being Polish. The British national media is failing to fairly cover, we feel, Poland during the occupation. It's clear they treat Poland differently to other countries. There are inconsistencies in describing location and crimes. Aims are in Poland where they should be. Further, when crimes are committed in Poland, they are committed by Poles, but German crimes in Germany are the actions of the Nazis. Poles are not selected as victims anywhere as often as the second largest group in the German camps, as would be warranted. It is unlikely the BBC director or the editor of British National People have had their staff ordered to spread anti-Polish sentiment, i.e. they shall damn the Poles. However, there is a pattern emerging. I believe within a few years, PMI will create its investigation into the material to help stop the spread of anti-Polish sentiment. Copies of the smaller booklets are available for free from me. I've also put a few down there. So those are just the hardback and larger ones, I'm afraid we can't give away for free, but you can come and see them. Thank you much for your time.